Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Strategy Game Podcast. And today I am super excited to have Mike Gonzalez on from AskMikeGonzalez.com. He has been such a great partner on many projects that we've worked on, and just a great strategy mind. And we think alike on a lot of things. So just really excited to have him on and have him share. So Mike, thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me on the show.
So today we're going to dive into some really cool stuff around word of mouth strategy, and I'm excited to get into that. But first, I always like to start with a story and just your personal story and your journey throughout your career of how you got to where you are today, because a lot of times that reveals a lot about where somebody came from, and it's a winding road, right, for all of us. And those pieces, those puzzle pieces, usually speak to our experience and our wisdom reflected in our client work. So could you just share a little bit with our audience about your personal career journey and how you got to where you are today?
Absolutely. Yes. So I am actually from a very large family. I'm one of eight. I was homeschooled from beginning to end, and actually started my first company when I was in middle school. I was ran a little PC repair company out of my garage. And it was kind of the word on the street was, if your computer was broken, you bring it by my house. I'll remove the viruses. I'll make it run faster. But I did that throughout middle school, leading into high school. And as I was doing that, I discovered a passion for not only how to make computers work better, but how to actually make the software on the computers easier to use. I was getting questions from people all the time. How do I do this? This seems complicated. And so I began to kind of take note of certain things that people were having a hard time with when it came to just using their computer, and began to ask myself, how can I make the apps on computers more intuitive? So that led me to start studying and observing what Apple was doing. And so keep in mind, this is probably early 2000s, right? Steve
That is
Jobs is still alive. He's still working at Apple.
yeah.
The iPhone didn't exist. And at this point, everyone was using apps on computers exclusively.
Yes.
So I was beginning to study, patterns of what I believed made apps intuitive, easy to use. People always talked about Apple computers being easier and didn't have viruses. So I took note. And
Yeah.
as I began to do that, I began to start learning how to design software, graphic design. And so I remember early on, my 12th birthday, my parents bought me my first computer. And in that, they bought me an app to design graphics. And in that, I began to just spend hours just designing whatever I saw. I would get magazines in the mail, catalogs of electronics, and I would try to draw what I saw as an illustration on the computer. Then that turned into, again, observing Apple computers and just looking at the apps themselves, how they're laid out, how they're designed. So I would try to recreate that in graphic design software. And one thing led to another. I started freelancing online. I started joining communities online of other designers, other software developers who are having conversations around apps and ideas. And again, this is before the iPhone existed.
Yes.
And so through that, I just began to build relationships with different people online. We would collaborate on apps and software and websites together. And all of this was just self-taught over time. By the time I was 17, I'd been doing freelance graphic design work for a while. Was finishing up school and began to start posting a lot of my work online as a portfolio, and just had that steady flow of developers and entrepreneurs who are hiring me
No,
contractually.
okay, I'm interrupting you, but I have a question. What
Yeah.
mediums were you using to do this then? I'm trying to remember like what period we're in. Like
Say it again. I'm sorry.
where were people sharing their
Oh,
work?
yes.
Like where were you uploading these graphics?
Yeah. So it's funny. We take for granted the world of social media, Facebook and
Yeah,
Instagram and things like that. But they didn't exist when I was doing this. So where was I
right.
sharing it? There were a lot of just forums,
Okay.
uh,
Like forum.
forums
Yeah,
that were based on specific topics
right.
online. And I just through Google search found forums where people were saying, "Hey, I designed this interface for this app, or I redesigned Windows to look like a Mac. And so that's how I discovered a lot of these communities online, just through Google.
Okay.
And I landed on a couple forums.
Okay.
And so anyway, so by the time I was about 16 or 17 or so, I began to start posting my work on forums, and I started sharing my work on my own personal website. And I had launched a company virtually, kind of online. It was just a, beautiful website, portfolio work. I had different subcontractors I was working with all throughout the world, like, some in Great Britain and Italy and Germany and all over the world. So I put pin drops on a little map on my contact page saying that these are all of our offices. And it just looked like this really big operation.
All of your
Um, but it was, but it was me, a 16-year-old working from home with, uh, 7 or 8 subcontractors collaborating together.
Amazing.
But we had so much work. I decided, okay, I'll handle the administrative piece, and then I'll let a lot of the other designers I met through these forums collaborate with me. So I would, set the scope of the work, give them the context of what needs to be done, and really acted more as a creative director. And then took on some personal projects I designed myself. But as I was just doing that, into the habit of just of taking on projects and finishing projects, I was approached by Apple. They discovered my website, saw my portfolio, and
Wow.
offered me a full-time job to work in Cupertino designing apps for Macintosh computers, Mac computers at the time.
And you were how
And
old at this point?
I
17?
was 17, yeah.
17. Okay.
And so finishing up high school, I'm 17, and I was just blown away because they were my inspiration that got me into this, design,
Fine.
visual design work. And so to be offered a full-time job was just a dream of a lifetime. So
Yeah.
in that, I start the process of conversations. We do the interviews. We do, auditions, and I go through that process, and finally get to the stage to where they want me to come out to California. And mind you, I'm based in South Florida, so it's a cross country flight to Cupertino. So as I'm getting ready to do that, or make preparations to do that, I remembered, I was like, wait a minute, I should probably tell my parents that I'm in conversation with Apple and might be moving to the other
I
side of the
can't believe
country.
you didn't tell them before
No,
this. This is incredible.
it was one of those. I was so used to just emailing and working with people. It was just instinctive. But I had a conversation with them, and they were excited, but at the same time, I come from a family of faith, so they challenged me to just pray about that job opportunity
Yeah.
and see if the Lord really was leading me to do that. And so I
Mm.
was newer in my faith, and so I prayed through that, and through prayer, just felt the Lord was really leading me not to take that job, as surprising as it was, and instead invest more time and more energy scaling the company that I had started. I felt like he was saying to me, there are things that you can't, there are things I want to do through you in the business that you've started that you
Yeah.
won't have the freedom to do if you take the job at Apple.
Wow.
And so I wrestled with that for a couple of days, but then just had that peace and turned down that job opportunity and went full speed into building my design
Are
company.
you fighting back
And
at that point? I mean, if it's something that you don't necessarily want to hear, I mean, were you
yeah,
all in before this? Like before you started asking, like, is this what I should do? And was
I,
that
I
hard?
I would say that it was a mix because I was extremely excited about having the opportunity to work for, a top tech company, and at the same time nervous because I'd never lived anywhere else, ever. And
Sure.
so it was going to be a big change, but I love change. I love change. So I was just excited, all in, ready for it.
Yeah.
And when I kept hearing this persistent just voice of, this is not what I have for you, this is not the direction I want to take you,
Hmm.
I challenged it because I was saying to myself, well, how many people get this opportunity
Right.
to just randomly work for a company? Typically, they have to apply and go through the whole process, but they were literally handing me this opportunity. So I really did wrestle with it for a couple of days,
Yeah.
but I just consistently kept hearing um, this still small voice saying, "Look at what's before you. Look at what you've done. So far, you've built this business. You've got clients. You have, something that's running." And so I realized this was something I should not just walk away from. So at first I thought maybe I could work for Apple and run this side company at the same
Oh,
time and just kind
yeah,
of have my hands in both.
yeah,
And I literally took that conversation to them, and they said to me, no, this is a full-time job. We want you exclusively. And
yeah.
so I knew at that point it wasn't going to be one of those things to where
Do
I
both.
would feel at peace walking away from what I had started in terms of my company. So I turned it down, and then went through a season where work actually began to dry up. So the contractual work that was coming through that I thought, yes, this is the right choice. I made the right, I listened to the Lord. I moved in the right direction.
Yeah, now you're like, what
Work
the
began
heck?
to kind of
Where did it, what
slow
happened?
down. Yeah. And then I started getting a lot of projects that weren't really aligning with my values.
Okay.
Different projects that I would never ever consider um, just coming across my desk. It was just all the wrong types of projects, and so I was just frustrated for a period of time. I was like, God,
Yeah,
what in the world? What I thought I heard you say, pursue, build your business,
yeah,
and say no to the dream job, and now I'm getting garbage projects or really nothing at all.
yeah.
Um, and that lasted for probably 6 months. So it was beginning of the year when I got the opportunity from Apple. And by the middle of that year, or really for a period of 6 months, it was just like either no projects or projects that weren't the right fit.
Hmm.
But by the summer, late summer of, I think it was 2006, I began to get a opportunity that came through my website, and it was from Microsoft, and they were just impressed with the portfolio, loved the work, wanted to know my availability. And through conversation, it basically led to what's now a 14-year contract,
Wow.
redesigning and maintaining and servicing Microsoft Office for the Mac. And they were one of my first major clients. And then that evolved into working with a lot of different publicly traded tech companies as a result of that uh, contract opportunity that came through Microsoft. But it was just really neat to
That you
see.
had to go through that period of
Yeah.
I have to turn this down. This seems really difficult. It doesn't make sense. And then you walk through almost like a bit of a drought or like just an
Yes.
off season. And
Yes.
then it came. And don't you feel like it always comes in the last hour? Like when you're on the brink of giving up or
Oh, yeah.
completely turning around. So it's such a fascinating story. Really neat.
Yes.
You've developed that relationship over years, which has been really
Yeah.
cool.
So that evolved into a full service digital product design company, and I ran that for 16 years. And we
Wow.
worked with startups and publicly traded tech companies and everything in between. And so
Yeah.
I did that for 16 years, and then recently made a career change and wound down that company. And now I am focused primarily on the marketing side of it. So I was often working behind the scenes, creating the products that people would sell. But now I'm actually helping people sell products that I used to create. So it's really being on the other side of it. You see the full spectrum of
Yeah.
how human behavior works, user experience, and what people are promising and what the app needs to deliver. And now I'm in that middle where I connect both of those worlds together.
Oh, I love that so much because you've had so many years of experience on the back end, and it's like now
Hmm.
it's come full circle where you're using
Yeah.
all of those experiences, all of the things that you've seen to just bridge any gaps, right, in that user experience. I feel like
Yeah.
that's where you're really, really strong. So it's really cool to see you now shift into this new season where you are like the strategist and you're really directing that strategy for people, which is amazing.
Yeah, because it's when you think about it, a lot of either tech companies or entrepreneurs in any category who's very close to their product, they're so familiar with it, they assume that their customer is equally as familiar with their product or service.
Totally.
And as a marketer, you have to kind of zoom out and say, well, what if this is your customer's first time even understanding that they have this particular challenge
Yeah.
and they need your product to solve that problem? How
Right.
can we speak to them on an entry level perspective so they can wrap their head around it? So
Totally.
that's the world I now I live in, if you will. I'm translating things that maybe technical people assume and making it easy for the regular average individual to just say, this makes sense to me, and you've given me the words to tell my friends, right? So that's where I get excited, just making things extremely clear, simple, easy to understand, and you want to motivate your audience to take action.
It goes
and
back to your
work
roots,
with you.
right? Like it goes back to the initial like gift you really had, right? As an early teenager,
Yeah.
designing things so that they looked clean, so that they looked simple, they were easy to
Yes.
understand. You're still doing that just in a
Still doing
different
it.
context. Isn't that cool? I mean,
It's really neat. Yeah.
that's that identity-based strategy piece, where I say it's like
Yes.
threads throughout your life. Look back at those threads. What common threads really weave all the way through your life? And you're usually using them just maybe in different facets, in
That's
different
it.
capacities. So
Exactly.
that's really
Yeah.
good.
It's when people understand, then they can finally move forward. Right.
Yeah.
And so I'm always looking for ways to remove barriers, roadblocks, things that sit in front of of reaching the potential. I love doing that. So it's been really neat
Okay,
to do
so
that
people
through.
understand, then they can move forward. So a lot of
Yes,
times people don't buy, people don't engage because they don't understand either what you're selling, or they may not understand how to get it or how to interact with you, right? There's many
exactly.
different factors. That's
Exactly.
really, really,
Exactly.
that's
Yeah.
so let's dive in a little bit to the meat of this talk today, and I'm really excited about it because it's one of the things that really brings clients back repeatedly, and it makes your business cyclical rather than a funnel that goes just from the top to the bottom, right? But in a almost like that flywheel that you've talked about a lot.
Yeah.
And I love that illustration. So tell me a little bit about what you've been working on with clients in terms of just that word of mouth strategy and framing that conversation.
Yeah, so I work with a lot of boutique service providers who have built a strong reputation for what they do in the natural world, in person. Whether you're an architect or a wealth manager, someone is always looking for what you do, but they want a referral,
Yeah.
right? Traditionally, in the boutique service provider space, people feel comfortable working with that individual and paying that premium price because there's trust, there's an established relationship there. And
Yeah.
so often, most of my clients receive their business through a very strong recommendation or referral. And so, one of the things that I do is I kind of reverse engineer what makes a referral good, what makes a recommendation actually stick,
Okay.
right? And so we have to kind of think through, the different types of referrals that are out there. There's really three. There's the customer referral, there's the vendor referral, and then there is the automated or algorithmic referral.
Okay.
And I'll break those three things down, but
Good.
we'll spend
Okay.
most of our time on the customer referral.
Okay.
So the customer referral is anytime a existing client that you may have worked with tells a colleague or friend about their experience working with your business. And now that person has the information they need to confidently work with that referral.
Okay.
An example of this would be if I was looking for a good mechanic for my car, and I maybe was looking for someone who, I trusted, who has also had work done in their car. I'm going to ask a friend and say, "Hey, who is a good mechanic that I can talk to?" And they're going to obviously list off their favorite and explain how they took care of them, giving their personal experience.
Yep.
And what that does for a individual who's receiving this referral is that it gives context
Mhm.
as to what to expect. It removes that fear of the unknown of, will this person take care of me? What's their process like? So it gives context.
Yeah.
But then secondly, it gives a benchmark for what is standard, what is the ideal. Because now when someone refers me to a mechanic and says they do good work, this is their process, I now have something in my mind that I can compare all the other things I'm considering against. Right.
Mhm.
And if my referral from my friend outweighs all of the other options I was looking at as I'm searching on Google or what have you, then I'm going to move forward with my referral, what my friend said.
Yeah.
And lastly, it gives credibility, meaning I now not only see what their process is like, I have a standard or a benchmark of what to expect, but I also trust the relationship because I know they took care of my friend who
Yeah.
referred me.
Yeah.
So it does those three
Right.
things. It gives context, it gives a benchmark, and it gives credibility. And
Ability.
that's really what a customer referral is all about.
Okay.
The other two that I mentioned, vendor referrals, this is business to business. This is,
Yep.
let's say, for example, in marketing, if I'm a web designer, I'm looking for a web developer, or if I do SEO and I'm looking for a content writer, that's going to be vendor supplier referrals. And that's what that's all about. And
Yeah.
then the third one that I mentioned, algorithmic, we really don't hear many people talk about that, but this is really when you buy something on Amazon and it said, here's some products that might be compatible with what you just bought, or because you bought this, water hose, do you want a water spout? Like, it's things like that that are all automatic or algorithmic,
Okay. Yeah.
that are driven by
Okay.
technology. But the main area of referrals that I work with is the customer referral category, and
Okay.
so the biggest challenge that I think many business leaders run into is the fact that they just assume, and I ran into this issue when I ran my first company. I always had word of mouth referrals. It was just 100% referral based. I didn't do any marketing, I didn't do any sales. Uh, I just did good work for one client, and then I expected that client to refer me to another client. And it did that. It worked for a period of time, but then I reached a point to where the referrals just began to dry up, and I
Okay.
was trying to figure out, well, why does this happen?
Yeah.
And it goes back to this. If you don't have a strategy for word of mouth referrals, you're going to be playing this game of guessing, when is that next project coming and where is it coming from? And
Yes.
so I work with companies helping them build a strategy for their word of mouth referrals so they can build a reputation online to match that reputation they already have in person.
That's really good. Okay. So you're really helping them develop out their strategy that has been kind of loosely based on nurturing relationships, but you're
Right.
helping them translate that into what it needs to look like on platforms. Is that
Yes.
pretty much to sum it up?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, I feel like that's a difficult thing for a lot of people to do on their own because
Mhm.
they don't know how to take those informal relationships really that they've developed and translate that into a strategy that works. Are you seeing that
Yes.
they're having
Yes.
difficulty making that connection?
Yeah, a lot of it goes back to, when you, that connection is really important. And I think because there's this assumption when you have your busy season, you just assume that more work is going to come in, because often boutique service providers are either solopreneurs or they work with a very small team. So they're usually overwhelmed by the volume of work that comes in through the referral as it stands. So
Yes.
there often isn't this big push to build the funnel, or think through all of the channels in which referrals come through. But when you reach that period of a dry season, or when you want to begin to start developing new streams of revenue from different channels,
Hmm.
this is where the strategy begins to shine. And so one of the things I like to describe is, I want every business that I work with to understand this, that there's a process, there's a journey that your customer is going through before they reach you. And
Yeah.
by the time they decide to give you a call and go through the process of discovery and looking at your products and services, there's a series of steps they've gone through
Yeah.
just to get to that point. And that's what we call the buyer's journey. And so there are 5 stages to the buyer's journey. And it's pretty common in terms of how it's described, but I really boil them down to these 5. First, you have to become aware. The customer has to become aware of a problem or pain
Wow.
that they are experiencing. And
Yes.
in the context of your business, they need to be aware of the pain that you solve,
Hmm.
right? So how are they discovering this pain?
Yeah.
Secondly, they have to then consider the options. This is where maybe someone in their network might be referring them to your business.
Yeah.
So there's this consideration stage. They're doing research, they're looking you up online, they're trying to see if your website is saying what your customer has said about you. They're probably checking your Instagram, they're checking your LinkedIn. They're
Yep.
trying to see, are you the real deal?
That's what
Is
I do.
this
That's
is
what
this
I do.
person legitimate? Can they
Yeah.
actually take care of me?
Can I
And in
trust
some
them?
cases,
Hmm.
can I even get along with them? Right.
Yeah.
So these are all things that are happening in this consideration stage. Then they make a decision. That's when they actually sign the contract, buy the product, make the transaction, and they begin to work with you. And then in that process, they are now in this retention stage, right? How long are they going to do business with you? Is this a one-time transaction? Is this repeat business?
Right.
There's a lot of gold in helping your customer do repeat business with you. It's actually
Yeah.
less expensive to service your existing clients than it is to acquire new.
Convert cold traffic. Yes.
Yes, yes. And then from there, the last stage is the advocacy stage or the advocate stage. And that's where word of mouth strategy begins to shine, because every time you have an existing client who has a good experience, they are the prime candidate to become your advocate. And the name of the game is to give your existing clients um, moments in their experience with you that they can look back on, and they get excited. They're proud to tell that story of transformation they experienced, and now they've become your advocate, and basically feeding your funnel with new, trusted, warm contacts.
So good. That's so good,
Mhm.
Mike. Thank you. That what you just shared there was absolute gold. And for anyone listening, I think if you were walking through this or play it back and listen to this and think about your own journey that your customers go on and where any gaps are, you'll probably start to see them emerge and where you need to concentrate your efforts first. And it helps you prioritize your action items, prioritize your focus, right, in bridging those gaps in your customer nurturing journey. So thank you. That was really, really valuable. Where are the biggest holes, would you say, that you're seeing in working with clients in terms of customer journeys, like within those 5 stages that you just
Mhm.
described? What's the common pain point for
I
business
would
owners?
say that when you think of the 5 stages: awareness, consideration, decision, retention, and advocacy, the biggest challenge, the biggest gaps I often see are in the consideration stage.
Okay,
Um,
let
the
me repeat.
consideration between awareness and consideration. If you are looking for something, right, and you discover the answer for the pain that you have, that answer is timely because you need what that solution provides, right? But if you are not searching for a particular pain, but you're bombarded with digital ads online and you're getting emails that aren't talking to something you can relate to, it's no longer timely. And so every good referral has to be timely. It has to be from a credible source, and it has to be from a relationship we trust, right? And so the gap that I'm seeing is in this consideration stage between awareness and consideration. Sometimes we spend a lot of efforts and energy marketing to people who don't have that pain right now. So it's not timely. And then after we've spent dollars on Facebook or what have you, LinkedIn or wherever we're advertising, then when we are trying to get people to make a decision, we aren't necessarily the right person to press to make the case that you need to work with us. Many businesses forget that it's the relationships, your existing customers, that have the trust of your
Yes,
future clients.
yes,
So we need to spend less energy trying to do the hard sale, trying to show up everywhere with ads and persuasive language, and
yes.
instead empower our existing clients to become our advocates, to see people who have that pain and then give the timely recommendation, which then leads to new business. So it's that gap between customers becoming aware of the pain and
Mhm.
then making the consideration.
That's
If
good.
we can get those things correct, a
Yeah.
timely referral, a give them the information they need on your website or your social media to be positioned as someone who's credible
Yeah.
from a trusted relationship, that removes the biggest gaps that I see in that area.
So good. Thank you, Mike. More gold. I love it. Just, I just love it. Okay. So as we wrap up here, I want to leave our listeners with some tangible things, maybe that they can start to think about today, or some quick things that they can start to evaluate. So, what are just a couple things that come to mind, as we wrap up this conversation of things that they can use to start to evaluate what they need to do?
Yeah, I would say the first and foremost, if you're in business, you likely have a website, and that's going to be one of the places that your customers discover you. As we think about this whole word of mouth, experience or journey, if someone is looking for you in Google, they're likely going to run across one of your touch points. And we want to make sure that whatever they see first is consistently saying what your customers are saying about you. So I'd
Yeah.
say, tangibly speaking, if you have a website, You want to make sure your website does these three things.
Okay.
One, it explains what you do
Mm.
from the perspective of the person who has this pain.
That's
They're
the
now aware of this problem,
that's the key
right?
from their perspective. That's the
From their perspective, not I've been in business for 30 years
they
and
don't
we've won all these awards and look at all of our happy customers. No, it needs to say, you're experiencing this pain. We understand. Here's
yeah,
some practical examples of how we've solved it. Take these next 2 steps or 3 steps and have that problem solved. So it needs to say what you do. It also needs to describe what's in it for me,
yeah,
right? So if I'm the customer, it's great that you do that great thing, but how does that change my life? So it needs to get really tangible there. And you can do this with case studies from customers, written testimonials of how they've experienced that transformation of your product or service, or you can show your portfolio. So again, if you're, have a business that can showcase a portfolio of your work, use that as an opportunity to show your client what's in it for them. And lastly, your website needs to explain how that customer can get access to what they just read and what they just saw. And sometimes we make it so complicated. We make them fill out this application and then we send them an email and then they don't know what to expect next. Make it really clear.
yeah,
Contact us, schedule a call,
yeah,
visit our store, whatever it is. Make
yeah.
it very simple.
That's
So I
great.
would say that that's going to be some tangible things that will keep anyone occupied for the next couple of days as they work to fine tune their website, which is your biggest touch point. There are some practical things you could do for your social media as well. I can give an example if you'd like. If you have an Instagram account, which many businesses do, you want to make sure that your Instagram does these three things. One, it describes a little bit about you, right?
Mm,
Because people want to know who's behind the business, who's running it, so it adds that personal layer. Then it shows examples of your product or service, examples of your work. And the best way to do this is to show it kind of in real life, not just a staged product, but show it in real life because
yeah,
people want to imagine themselves with that product or service. And then give examples, highlight examples of what other people are saying about you. This gives that credibility, but it also connects it to relationships that they might be able to relate to, right? So this is where you might have an influencer or an actual customer who might tag you. Repost it in your feed. Help them experience the transformation that you provide with your product or service by seeing what other people are saying. So your
so good.
Instagram should tell a little bit about you, give examples of your work, and then also show what other customers are saying. And if you do those two things across your website and your Instagram, you're going to convert way more referrals that head your way. Than you would ever imagine, honestly, because now you're validating the thing that they're looking for.
Isn't that wild? That really, most of us may have probably have heard these things before, right? And it reminds me of like, we need to be reminded more than instructed because we get down rabbit holes. We get distracted. We get overwhelmed by all of the things that we think we need to do,
Hmm.
or things we need to learn more about, or, where we need to go. But I love how you just stated those things so simply. Just play this back, write those things down, and just actually do those simple things. And I think you'll experience results already. And we're also going to drop, Mike, your information in our show notes so that people can get in touch with you if they're interested in taking this a step further. Because if you're a business owner that really needs a plan and you need that translation piece, which is really key in terms of setting your presence up on those platforms, then Mike can definitely help you. So, Mike, just thank you so much for being on today. It was just so great having you. And I love
Yeah,
your
thanks.
story every time.
Thanks for having me. I
It
really enjoyed it.
was awesome.